the Army values, the Warrior ethos, coaching, and therapy. This is Warrior Leadership. This is Warrior Leadership. Hello, everybody. Welcome to another episode. Before we get started here, I just want to make sure that I put a plug in for my upcoming cohort that's coming up for my first-time leaders training. It's going to start on the 4th of June. So mark that on the calendars. Reach out to me. Get yourself set up for that cohort because we're gonna learn how to lead and create influence and be a confident leader together. You got anything you wanna put out there as far as a promotion there, DB?
Yeah, absolutely. So I still have a Man Cave support group. It's still available. I have approximately 6 slots for anyone who would like to join our virtual Man Cave group. That will be starting in the month of June, around June the 3rd. So if you're interested in joining the Man Cave support group or learning more about Man Cave support group, reach out to me, and that way we can tell you more information and then get you signed up.
And DB is the man for that group. It's a great group. Anyway, I'm not in it, but I'm in another group of his, and he rocks out. So anyway, so this episode of Warrior Leadership is going to talk about accountability. And by the way, it's part of a 4-part series. And I'm going to talk about that 4-part series for a second. The series is Leading by Example. And this one, we're going to do accountability. Next week, we're going to talk about delegation. Then we're going to follow that up with some more ownership, which we've talked about before, but you can talk about that a lot. So we're going to do it again, not just you, but both of us. And we're going to finish that off with selfless service. But accountability kind of goes hand in hand with ownership, but they're a little bit different. Accountability is knowing what needs to be done and not making any excuses as to why that can't happen. And that's not a textbook definition, but I couldn't find one without the word in the definition, so I made up my own. What do you think, DB?
You know, I would have to agree. I think accountability is really taking a fearless moral inventory of behaviors and actions that we have done to contribute to something that may have happened, and change the parts of it that we can control.
And that's true. You know, I'm gonna talk about something that a lot of people, especially business owners, it keeps them up at night. And so there is such thing as over accountability, and it kind of causes like this extreme fear of failure. And so this is one thing that when we talk, we're going to have a nice conversation about accountability, but you got to be careful because you can get caught in a spiral. And one thing that happens is that people start losing sleep and they start over worrying and they start really freaking out about all of these things that have to be done all the time. But guess what? It works for a lot of people. I won't say it works out for everybody, but one thing that I was taught at a very young age, and it's worked for me and it's worked for a lot of people, is taking that inventory of all of those things that need to be done, figuring out what you can control in that moment, and figuring out what you cannot control in that moment, and just taking one action. Maybe it's writing a task down that relates to that you can do the next day, or maybe it's shooting off a quick email. Whatever the case may be, if that's going to make you feel better and let you be restful and get on with your evening or get some sleep, then it's a good thing to do. Don't get caught in that over accountability because it's not healthy. When you talked about that inventory, that was the first thing that I thought of because I've had that conversation with a lot of people.
For sure. You know, I know we wanted to kind of get it all started by talking about a value system. I think that when it comes to accountability, different cultures, different people from different backgrounds will have a different view on accountability based on their family of origin and how they were raised. And so all of those factors come into this idea of values. And but when you think about that, it's what are the dominant values of a culture, right? Meaning, how does the whole culture, when we think about America, how does American culture view accountability? And that to me is the most important way to kind of view that, because I think that when you think of, and I don't want to get too far off into politics, but we can have different political views about um, different ideals and things like that. But when it comes to accountability, I think the prevailing truth should be every individual has the should be accountable to the choices that they make, the decisions that they make. And we live in a society now that we're always trying to find ways to blame other people for our issues and for our problems. And I come in the world that we're in human services, it comes up so often. Like, we can always look at external factors to justify why we can't do something, which goes back to your definition, coach, of accountability. But when we look at accountability from the standpoint of controlling what we can control, to kind of bring in my definition as well and link our definitions together, I think we both agree that we have to be responsible for the portion of our lives that we can control. I know we can both look at our backgrounds, and I promise you that I can find a reason or a justification for why I'm not doing something based on my childhood experiences. And so many people that I work with in therapy, they have the same childhood trauma or worse. And the ones that heal, they take accountability for what they have control over. And so one of the things that I would want to say and present is that our healing is predicated on our ability to hold ourselves accountable for what we can change. And it really goes back to the serenity prayer. And I know in a lot of circles, in a lot of healing circles, the serenity prayer comes up, and God grant me the serenity to accept the things that I cannot change, the courage to change the things that I can, and the wisdom to know the difference. So I really believe in accountability in terms of its ability to help us heal.
Wow. I think that you said so much there that we could have like 12 to 15 broken down conversations just off of the different points you made there. But I think that when it comes to values specifically,
Yes.
then you can really say that it's not just cultural, it's also generational. When you said that, you did mention that, but today, you're right. Youth, they have a hard time taking accountability for their actions anyway. But it seems like that is extended to a lot of different age groups. I mean, look at the idea of marriage. How many
Mhm.
divorces are there these days?
Right.
By the way, marriage is a choice, and marriage is hard work, and hard work means accountability for your actions.
Mhm.
And to make it work, I mean, once upon a time, when you get married, you're married. But these days it's not the same. And so what has changed that? I don't know. There are a lot of factors that play into that, but what I will say is that all of those things that you just said play into it. But the main thing that I would like to point out when it comes to accountability is that no matter what that is, if you don't address the things that need to be done in your life, or the things that you're accountable for. I mean, you're accountable for taking care of your children. You're accountable for making your wife happy. You're accountable for making sure you have a roof over your head. And when you fall short in any one of those things, and you know it, but then you have so much pride that you have to maybe argue with other people about the things that are wrong, and you start passing the blame to this and passing the blame to that, and you don't accept the accountability, it hurts your heart, and it damages your soul.
Mm-hmm.
And you can't move on from that. And I mean, these people that have multiple divorces, I would hate to take a deep dive into their soul, because I think it's probably black, not with hate, but with hurt. And
Yeah.
we have to acknowledge that Michael is here. But let's go ahead and do that, because I could talk about that for a while. We were talking about that this morning.
Yeah.
He made a couple comments, but the most current one, let me put it up on the screen. I forgot I could do that. Hold on. He said the problem is people oftentimes believe they can change what they can't change. And as an extension of that, they don't give themselves grace.
Wow. That's powerful. That's
You know,
powerful. You know, you mentioned, Coach, you mentioned deep dive into the soul. As a therapist, that's what I do, man. I take that deep dive into the soul, man. And so as you said that, I was like, man, Coach just threw me an alley-oop, because that's what we do in therapy, man. And at the point where when you're working with them in coaching and you start to see these barriers, this blame, and it's continuous, and and you start to hear stuck points. And I know, Coach, you put something out a few weeks ago, or last week, I think it was, about stuck points on your page. And just when they're getting to this place where they're stuck, then it's time to go deep down into that soul and address those soul issues, those soul ties. And there's a lot of like things like trauma bonds, which I can go on and on about that. But when you said deep down in the soul, that's what it made me think about, because the other piece of that, man, is letting go of resentment. We have to let go of resentment. It's, even though we want to make it our best friend, and we want to, cozy up with resentment, it's not healthy for us. Like you said, it will tear us up from the inside out.
well, and we talked about that last week, remember? So you don't forgive for them, you forgive for you. And the reason that you let it go like that is because of the whole thing that we're talking about with the damaging of your soul, and keeping all that hurt buried down inside. If you can learn how to let that go, I mean, if you're a religious person, please pray about that, because the moment you can let that resentment go,
Mm-hmm.
the weight on your shoulders, it just frees a little bit. Not, I mean, we probably have a lot of things buried down inside, so it won't completely free up. But if you can forgive a person for something that they did, it makes every interaction with every other person a lot easier, because at the end of the day, and this is what's happened with me in the past, that thing that person did to you that you didn't forgive, you're going to slowly start thinking that other people are going to do that thing to you also. And you can't live like that. It's a very unhealthy way to go. And as far as an accountability standpoint, you need to do that so that you can move on. You are accountable for that forgiveness.
Right.
You are accountable for that forgiveness. And Michael said another good one. You know what, man, you have a book open or something, because you're dropping bombs today, man. He's got another one. Resentment will poison your mind and soul.
Oh man. You know what? That's it. That's
Yeah,
it.
that's it. Michael, I want to put a plug for Michael. So Michael Martin Hummel is an amazing guy. As you can see, if you can see that picture, he's in a wheelchair, but he's had a speaking engagement or more than one lately, and he's getting on stage because he's an advocate to spread the awareness of not only the capabilities that disabled people have, but how to interact with those people so that it can be a much more desirable experience for the person who has the disability and the person who doesn't have the disability. So I'm putting that plug in for you today, because you deserve it, my friend. Thank you for always being a supporter of our stuff.
Yeah, awesome, Michael. And we need to get him a gift or something, man. A custom made Warrior Leadership, something out to him, man. If he drops his address to you, JJ, I'll make sure my wife gets him something, a special gift, man, for coming out and supporting us all the time.
Yep. Send that to me in a DM, Michael, and I'll make sure I get that over to DB the therapist, so we can get you something nice.
Yeah. And to get to that point, man, just to really hone in on that resentment a little bit more, which it's this idea that when it comes to accountability and resentment, it's when we have resentment, it it gets in the way of our thoughts, choices, and our behavior. And so if we're not taking accountability and we have resentment, then we're saying, well, I'm thinking like that because of them, or I'm choosing this because of them. No, you're choosing that because of your resentment.
Bull.
And and so I think that's so important, man. Like, people, it's one of those things like, I'm not gonna and it even goes to the idea of forgiveness. People draw lines in the sand, coach, and I've seen it. I've been in standoffs with people where when we got to the core issue, and I would call it the person, place, or thing that offended them, it gets aggressive in my office sometimes, man. And I notice, and once we get to that place, if the person is not ready to kind of push past that and move into a place of forgiveness and reconciliation, then I have to, at that point is where even therapy is not appropriate for them. It's time for them to kind of go off and examine that, because they cannot heal again until they're willing to take accountability. And accountability in this sense is simply saying, I'm responsible for my wellness and well-being now. No one else has control over that or over me.
You're correct. And I'm glad you brought up the workplace, because I was eventually going to go there anyway. I always do. But, that we've talked about this in the past too. And I guarantee we're going to bring up the same things in a lot of different topics, because they all kind of correlate, right? It's all about wellness. It's all about human interaction. It's all about accountability is one of them, and ownership we'll talk about in a couple of weeks. But if you can't be trusted at work, it's a problem. And a lot of times you lose trust without even knowing it. And it could be just because you promised something to somebody else. That is the biggest thing. And I'm going to talk about it from a leadership standpoint. And I brought this up before, as I just said, but you will promise something to somebody when you say, hey, I need help with this, JJ, right? And you'll say, yeah, just let me finish what I'm doing over here, and I'm going to come back over and help you. Or I'll send somebody back over there to help you. And then it doesn't happen. Well, if that, and I did a talk on my Facebook group earlier about this too. But when that doesn't happen multiple times, not just that one time, but multiple times, you lose trust. And it's because you're not accountable for the things that come out of your mouth. You're not accountable for the things that come out of your mouth. Don't write checks that your mouth can't cash. If you tell somebody you're going to do something and then you don't do it, you're going to lose them. And because that happens so often, man, there are people, execution level people, that go from job to job to job to job, and they have issues with their managers, because people don't leave jobs. They leave their managers. They leave their leadership, because any job is tolerable when you have the right group of people there. And they automatically think, well, it doesn't matter what I say to my manager, because managers don't really do anything for you. They're just a figurehead at the top of the organization, or they're just the figurehead at the top of the team, and they give you work to do, and that's all they are. But if you can set the stage by only telling them that you're going to help them with the things that you can help them with, and you properly manage those expectations, that's accountability for your actions. You only do what you say you're going to do. And as a business owner, it's the same thing. You under promise and over deliver 100% of the time. Because if you don't, and people are wanting for more, then you just lost them. You just lost them. And you can't afford to do that. Life is all about creating relationships. And when you start focusing on the job and you forget about the people, then you lose them. Because nobody wants to just have crap forced down their throat all the time. They want an experience where they have human connection. You don't have to be in love with them or go out drinking with them on Friday. You just have to show them that you care. And you got another one. What you got, Michael? He said, if you don't have accountability for yourself at the workplace, what's to say you won't give yourself What's to say you won't give yourself accountability at home? And that can get, oh my gosh. I tell you what, I don't know. I might end up sleeping on the couch, and that's not because I fell asleep there. It's probably because I'll be not allowed in my bedroom to sleep next to my wife if I don't take accountability for my actions at home. Not that I'm not always in trouble anyway. That's what happens when you're married for 18 years. But what you think about that, brother? Brother
Oh
DB?
that's that's you giving a teaser for the that our series, man. We're gonna build the suspense for that one, man.
Yes.
We're not gonna even give them the name of that series yet, but that's a good one.
Yes.
We'll hold that one off.
Yes.
So I think the next thing I wanted to go in through, man, is before we kind of bring it home here, is taking action. And taking action in this accountability doesn't necessarily mean you have to. If you think about forgiveness and resentment and some of the things we talked about before, you can take baby steps. That's still taking action. So when it comes to these deep emotional wounds that we're talking about, and that's, for me, when I work with people, it's let's take it session by session. You don't have to, it doesn't all have to be resolved in one hour of a session working with someone.
No, not
But
at all.
when you start to take steps towards it, baby steps towards it, then and you start taking that accountability little by little, the healing process begins. And when you can begin the healing process, then that fear or whatever it is that's holding you back from moving forward and being accountable will it's just empowering. And so just take those small baby steps. And and I think that's going to lead into really our final point here, which is seek help from a professional. You don't have to necessarily come to me at, with me in my private practice or necessarily with the coach, but we are definitely available for you if you need that kind of professional help. But seek that help for wherever you're comfortable at. But seeking that help is the first baby step. Just reaching out, picking up the phone. I primarily focus on men's mental health, and then I work with couples. And what I will say is this: whenever a man calls me for therapy, I always celebrate them, because the hardest step is picking up that phone and acknowledging to another male therapist, another man, that you have a problem and you can't solve that problem on your own. And you know what? That is the heart of a warrior, if you ask me. Calling
Yeah.
for help is similar to calling for fire. And that's what I would tell any man, that like, don't feel ashamed because you reached out for help. Taking that step is that step of accountability. And I think that part of when we talked earlier about culture and shifting the way we look at things, we in our generation, coach, are reframing the way we look at seeking help. I mean, if you think about it, what we're talking about on our podcast, we're revolutionizing the way that what a warrior looks like. And warriors seek help. And there's many agencies and organizations that message that out. And we're just another example of, we have to start reducing the stigma on seeking help and be accountable for yourselves and go out and reach out for that help.
And Michael brought up something that's really interesting that I'll talk about in a minute, but I need to finish saying what you were saying, because I think more needs to be added to that. So a lot of people don't understand that point in which they need help. So check it out. If you having a problem taking action, that could go to a therapist or a coach, but it really just depends on at what point you are in your life that's holding you back, how deep the issues go, and really there are ways to evaluate that. But if you have such deep-seated issues that you can't even start to think of the possibilities of anything, I would say that is a definite need for a therapist. And when you don't have hope, you need a therapist. When you have a good handle on what's going on and you want to become a champion in whatever you're doing, you need a coach. Whether it's in life and you just have regular goals to go on with, or say you have a specific thing that you are working on in your business or with your teams, and you need that next level support to get you from where you are to just be the rock star that you deserve to be. That's when you need a coach, a leadership coach, a marketing coach, a whatever coach. There are many coaches out there, and I will do anything I can for you as a coach when it comes to leadership in life. And I have many people that I can refer you to when it comes to any of those other topics. And I know DB, if he can't help you as a therapist, he would get you to that person, because that's just the type of people we are. We don't care if you pay us. We need to get you to that person that can help you so that you're not stuck anymore. So let's see here. Where was that? I'm not going to talk about what you just said on there, Michael. People will probably read that later on, but I'm going to talk about this point right here. Vulnerability is such a stigma that shouldn't exist. Do you know how to connect with other people? You give them a gift. You give them a little bit of you. That's all vulnerability is. If you want them to give you something back, you have to give them something first. It's no different than business. But if you don't do that and you're never willing to give a little bit of you, the friendships that you'll have will be very interesting. I don't even know what that would look like. I wouldn't even be in front of DB right now as a friend, as a future business partner, if I didn't give a little bit of myself.
That's good.
Because he gave a little bit to me in the very beginning through a phone call. We knew we needed to talk to each other because we both had each other's business cards right there in front of us. But he gave a little bit of himself to me, and then I gave him that same gift back. I gave a little bit of myself to him. And as a result of that, we have a great friendship. And I would say that he's probably one of my best friends because of that. And so vulnerability, that is the key that unlocks the door. And if you're not willing to do it, you need to get unstuck, because it's not a weakness, it's a strength.
Wow. This is powerful, man, that we're ending a call about accountability and connecting the idea of vulnerability and accountability together, man. That is powerful. And it's a challenge, man. It's challenging. And so then that starts to lead you into this idea of fear, man. People are afraid to enter these spaces that we're talking about. And we understand that. We understand that fear. And fear is false evidence appearing real. And you're either going to face it and recover, or you're going to F it and run. It's that simple. Mom, thank you for that one, by the way. My mom used to always tell me that when I was a kid, man. And it stuck with me. My mom used to always have these one-liners, and that idea of fear, it stuck with me. And I always remind myself that when I feel that real fear, that real visceral emotion on the inside, when it comes to especially these situations where we talked about resentment and being accountable, all those things, like emotions are real, man. I don't know if, we really recognize that. I think we've been told so often, especially as men, like to only feel one emotion. And so because of that, all these other emotions, they just go unchecked in a way. And so we have to be accountable to those emotions, and we have to acknowledge them. And part of doing that is being vulnerable.
What was that acronym again, DB?
False evidence appearing real.
That's pretty good. I'm using that. Okay. I know failure is that first attempt in learning. So, I mean, if you have all of these conversations surrounding all of these negative things that we think are negative anyway in our mind, if you take that failure and you turn it into a first attempt in learning, if you take that fear and you turn it into false evidence appearing real. If you can take your mindset and go from down, you can actually force that to up if you're strong enough. And by the way, I know you are, I know I am, and I know DB is, because sometimes all it takes is picking up the phone to the right person. Hey, brother, this is what happened today, and I'm pissed off about it. Guess what? If you know that person's going to be the one to say, well, look at it this way, and you know that's going to change your day, that's how easy it is to reframe. You can do it alone, but it's always better with another person because we all love human connection. But anyway, we are at 30 minutes. So that is the end of our show. Show someone who you really are, and it'll be the betterment of both of you. Oh, man. Michael, we appreciate you so much, my friend. That is the end of our show. We're going to move on, and we're going to do next week's show, which is going to be on delegation. And there are lots of ways to delegate. But there are reasons why people don't. So we need to address those things, both from a coaching and therapy standpoint. So we're going to talk about that. Do you have any closing comments before we shut this down?
I don't, man. Just thank you again, Michael, for joining us. And don't forget to send that information to the coach. And that way we can get you out that swag, man.
Swag. I don't even have Warrior leadership swag. This is ridiculous. Anyway, it's okay. You can have it first. But anyway, wherever you're seeing this, whether it's live or as a replay, please like this, heart it, subscribe to this if you're on YouTube, refer us to other people. We need to grow our presence on social media so we can affect the lives of others. I mean, I think people for sure can use a little bit of guidance and coaching and therapy. And I'm not saying that it comes from us, but if we spark an idea in your head, then you'll go on a rabbit hole and you'll find the right person for you, even if we're not it. And that's all that really matters. So like, subscribe, do all those things, but to keep the conversation going, you have to comment below. So do that so we can respond to you. You all have a great day. This is JJ Hardy and DB the Therapist with Warrior Leadership, and we are out here.
Out.